sent me.
He was in New
pictures.
York.
Yeah, he's sitting on the first row waiting to go.
That's crazy.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. We can call the workshop to order. And Mr. Penn is the only member missing. We're jealous that he's in front of the Gutfeld.
He's not doing a virtual ordinance tonight.
Pat Knox says he goes. Gutfeld.
No,
Gutfeld.
he has a live audience, so this guy decided he wants to go to New York and be on Gutfeld.
He's in New York because I think it's his son-in-law, it's like a trainer or something for the Knicks.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I knew there was a pre-planned deal.
Yeah, his son-in-law has his position with the New York Knicks.
So he says, while I'm there, I'm gonna go to Gutfeld.
Yeah.
All right, before we start, I know we got the things that we have to talk about tonight. We'll get into a lot of discussion, I already know, because there's been a lot of discussion. But remember that our time spent here, because we only got 30 minutes, is questions, not deliberation. So let's remember when we're going that we can ask questions here, but let's save all discussion and deliberation after we start at 6:30. First thing is minutes. Anybody got any questions, issues with the minutes? There were 2 sets of them actually, so everything was good. Number 2 is going to be amending Chapter 8 Environmental, Article 3 Nuisance, Division 1, generally to replace Section 8-58 with a section entitled Lighting Nuisance. Amend Section 8-59, City may make improvements, charge costs to owner, and the renumbering of sections, and providing for effective date, and providing for a savings clause. I'm not sure the best part of this would be to have Craig read I know we got some questions. Should we read what the ordinance actually says?
We can summarize, you might as well move over here, David.
Yeah, you're gonna get lots of questions.
So,
Yeah, just sit right there.
I guess what should change?
so just Grady.
Pretty good to do.
So just a little background on how this came about. Gentleman came here to council in October. Yes. Complaining about his neighbor's lighting, but his complaint was that he had notified the city and the city wasn't doing anything about it. Well, the city wasn't doing anything about it because we don't have an ordinance that governs lighting, outfall lighting from one residential property onto another. Our ordinance, all that's governed in our current zoning ordinance, and it only governs lighting from commercial property onto residential. The actual section that covers lighting, the very first paragraph says, this section applies to all zoning categories except for single-family residential zoning properties. So we have no ordinance that we can regulate if one neighbor is shining light onto another neighbor's property and disrupting their ability to enjoy their property, enjoy their life. Everyone wants to do it. So from a staff standpoint, the easiest thing would have been to just take that exception out of the zoning ordinance, but that would have required all new home constructions would have had to submit a engineered lighting plan. It would have cost the home builders more money and the home buyers more money and created all this. We didn't want to do that. So Dave and I talked about it. He worked with the attorney and we kind of went back and forth a little bit on it. We felt like the best way to handle it was as a nuisance. Typically nuisances, they're not proactive enforcement, they're based on complaint. If someone, this is a nuisance, and I don't like ordinances that create, David, sometimes these ordinances say if it's offensive to a reasonable person. Well, I'm still looking for that reasonable person in those definitions. So we wanted to take something that was there, and we already have a standard in the ordinance that says if you have a commercial property next to a residential, the commercial property lighting cannot outfall to the residential greater than.
Well, that's what I thought. That's what I was referring to earlier. We had something.
Yeah, but it's only commercial to residential.
Yeah.
So, Mayor, I thought that right now you could go buy one of those big giant floodlights, you know, that they use for grand opening stores.
Yeah.
Put it in your yard, name across the street with your neighbor.
Yeah.
Neighbor calls the city and say, we're sorry, we're not.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, and that's an extreme case, but we have had a situation in the past, and I think we've been able to mediate between neighbors where we've had people intentionally put a spotlight to shine in their neighbor's backyard because they're having a dispute. So the issue was, there was no ordinance, council at the end of the meeting for future agendas said, you'd like to see us bring back an ordinance to address that issue, so that's what you've got here today. Again, we tried to do it something that was objective, it could easily be measured scientifically. I've had a couple of you ask me, what's 0.25 candle power? 1 candle power is the amount of light that 1 candle puts out on 1 square foot, 1 foot away. So you're not a quarter. So essentially, you're talking about no light from your property to be shown. Right? David said it's kind of equal to twilight. That's how you heard it, David?
Yep.
If you're looking at your neighbor's property and you're having to shield your eyes or whatever, you probably have too much light over there. So, in most cases, it's just adjust your lighting downwards. If you got a big mercury vapor light or something that doesn't light, they actually make shrouds for those you can purchase and attach that focus the light down and not out.
So, one question. It measures at the property line.
That's the property line.
So if a house is 25 feet from the property line, it's gonna make a difference in somebody that's 250 feet from the property line, right? It's still measured at the property.
Yes, measured the property line. And again, in most situations, people want lighting to light up the exterior of their house, but most people don't want, to be daylight outside around their house. There are exceptions in this for like holidays, there's exceptions for like the motion floodlights that come on, or if you've got ring cameras with floodlights or spotlights that come on, as long as they come on and go off after a short period of time. But it's just that continuous light, and basically, it should be on your property, not your neighbor's property. So,
For the non-continuous light, you put in there for 1 minute?
1 minute.
1 minute?
yeah. And that's, most of them, that's when they cycle off. I think my ring cameras do 30 seconds.
And I think you're right, this being a nuisance, I mean, someone could be a jerk and have a spotlight go off every minute just to upset their neighbor, could be. But I mean, with it being a nuisance, at least the
Yeah.
city has the opportunity to investigate, look into it.
If you got ring cameras, you want to be a jerk, just set the alarm off from your phone. It makes it awful.
Well, that would be a failure.
I have just one question.
Yes, sir.
Upon enacting this ordinance, is this going to be effective from this date forward, or can we go back to that case that was brought up in
No,
October?
we don't, you can't retroact.
We can't go right,
Well, they'll just have to bring it back
at
up.
least have to bring it back up and then we can enforce it.
Well, not even a
against
council,
it.
they would just have to call in and complain. If somebody had a light nuisance.
The way I asked Craig today was, it said, so many things get grandfathered when you come out with something new, obviously you have something new.
Yes.
But he said that calling it a nuisance means that it's fair game.
From
Yeah,
this
it's
date
current.
forward.
From now.
It makes it current.
It's if-
The date of the complaint.
Yeah,
Right.
it's if you have it
Okay.
now, so there's no change of that question, no grandfather.
Okay, good.
I got one thought on it, well, I have a lot of thoughts, but one is, I don't wanna see us overregulate, to the point where it's unnecessary. I'd like to see us, put something in play so that we can regulate it, and that gives us the power and the authority to bring it, stop people that are doing what we just talked about. But I'm hesitant to want to over-regulate to the point where it's,
We were talking staffing.
becomes a nuisance to the,
We were talking staffing this morning, we get kind of silly sometimes. If we put light meters on all the police cars and they drive along as they go down, that's not how this works. Somebody has to report, my neighbor's got, and if we go over there and we do light meter and it says it's, 0.25 or less, we tell the people, there's not a violation.
We don't have the staff for them to drive around looking for
But no, we're not, it's not one of
somebody
those.
else. Yeah,
We've historically been complaint-based when it comes to code enforcement,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And we have enough code violations, and now, we're not totally that way anymore, there's some stuff where
Getting
things that
proactive.
council has in the
Yes.
past expressed they want addressed.
and by that too, to clarify, I don't mean that, what I'm trying to say is that Brittany has this lot and some of it's coming on my property, it's really not that big a deal, but I make it a big deal, we'll avoid that kind of regulation or that kind of, you know what I mean? I don't know, the candlelight thing, I have no idea about that, I know you you've studied it some, come up with ideas of how bright something should be to not affect somebody else. But I don't, I guess,
Well, I mean, this is the standards already in the ordinance. It's the current standard is there for the commercial. Well, I mean, the perfect example, I think, is the, Sefco, when it came in, there's the houses next door to it. There was real concern about the lighting, so they had to, in fact, we went back and forth with the lighting, I think it was predates you, because the lighting in the parking lot, their outfall exceeded the ordinance, so they had to go back several times and tweak their parking lot lighting and make sure and retract that light back.
So I'm gonna give you a specific example. I saw that property over between Tajan and Quickley, and this guy that lives 1,000 feet away from that property was here to complain to make sure that the lights for this small mini storage unit the guy wanted to put up might affect his house. And I'm like, you got a church right next door to you that's blaring light at your
Well,
door
yeah.
right now. It's ridiculous. So I don't wanna get into that, is what I'm trying to say as a council and as a city. I wanna avoid that kind of nonsense.
This creates a clear and measurable delineation. It says, this is the standard you, and it's not made up, I mean, this is a standard across most cities.
And it's not something we can't address later too, if we need to.
All right, let's not to
Yeah.
burn, I wanna get to everyone, so everybody has a chance. The next one is the repealing the charge for the burn fee. Does anybody have a question, not discussion, but a question for that? I'm sure you did.
I didn't even realize we had a charge for it, so.
Well, nobody did, that's why we brought it up.
I'll counter that, in terms of, it was a part of the fee schedule that we all approved.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying that it kind of, because the way I found out, and again, I don't wanna get discussion, but the way I found out is I burned, and a resident sent me a message and said, hey, do you know that there's a fee for burning now? I said, well, no, because I called Craig, found out that I got the big list up here of the fees, and it's in there, but we haven't even been charged, because I said, wait a minute, I burned after October 1st, and nobody charged me, so why did I get charged? And so that began the discussion, and also the discussion of why would we charge 50, because the resident does all the work, basically, which I'm sure we'll get into. But, yeah, so it was in there, but it kind of got lost in the 10, 15 pages of,
To a degree on that, but I'll save mine
That's
for
fine.
main session. But my question on that, from just when we talked about it a little bit, is that are we going to be doing physical inspections?
Yeah, the current city ordinance requires that we have to do a visual on-site inspection.
And that kind of changes the game for me a little bit because.
but if our ordinance requires it, we're not doing it.
Right, so,
Definitely correct.
okay, then my thought is, if we're charging it, I don't like, well, this is more for.
Yeah, all right, let's save that thought, I'll give you plenty of time, okay. Then also, this is something that we've had discussion on in another meeting, now it comes to us tonight, the support for the application of the Vontae Legacy Meadowbrook LP to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for 2025 competitive 9% housing tax credits to develop affordable senior rental housing and other matters in connection therewith. Jimmy and, Henry are here. If someone has a question, remember, save your discussion, but if you got a question for them, since it's not a public hearing, we can ask them from the table. Or you can ask Craig if we have anything. I know we had a lot of discussion already. Does somebody have a question that they think that Eddie can answer? Okay. Just wanna make sure. The next one is discussion and direction regarding the solid waste services contract. So, I talked to Craig about this today. Our current solid waste service contract expires at the end of June. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so Craig just wants, well, you tell him what you want, Craig. What would you tell him?
We just did
Yeah,
this.
so the initial contract was for 5 years with 2 1-year renewals, and so we were in the last year of that. That contract, in 2018, we did bid that out because the company that provided service at the time was not very good. Those of you on the council remember, we were discussing whether we wanted to do carts or no carts, and recycle or no recycle, and we wanted to add bulk and brush, and how household hazardous waste and all that. So we bid that out as multiple options. We had, give us a quote with no cards, give us a quote with just parts, give us, so we pick up twice a week, pick up every week, recycle every other week. I mean, it was quite a bit of things.
Exclusive commercial rights.
Yeah, exclusive, commercial. At the time, we were not doing, franchise for dumpsters or roll-offs. We still don't do roll-offs, we do multiple roll-off companies in the city. But, so we had a lot of discussion, so we decided to bid it because we didn't know what different options were out there and stuff. And we were getting pretty poor service from our previous provider, so we didn't wanna renegotiate with them. So we went through that process, and Waste Management came with low bid, and they met or exceeded all of our requirements. Their household hazardous waste entry door service, we require at least twice a year, so they met all that. So we went with that, and did that. We're not required by law to bid it, we can bid it if we want to. So we're here now 7 years later, and this contract is about up, and we can approach them and renegotiate with them. We can approach another company and negotiate with them too. But, those of you that were here at the time might remember how painful the transition was changing from trash companies. Robinson's a challenge with the streets and the private drives and the layout, and people's trash day got changed, and that was pretty tough for some people. They were used to putting their trash out on Tuesday, and now they put it out on Thursday, and those things. So we're at this point, and from staff standpoint, we look at it like, it's not broke, we can fix it.
Yeah, we have a good relationship with them,
Negotiate it.
don't
We
we?
did the survey late 23, y'all got early 24, they ranked number 2, the police department, as far as city services, favorability rating and stuff. Um,
And that
We've
was-
compared our current rates each year. Destiny does a good job of reaching out to other cities and comparing our rates to hers. Our rates are competitive with the other cities, so it's not like we're being charged for a ridiculous amount. So we would like to approach them and negotiate a new contract with them. And we'll do it pretty quick, so if it looks like we can't get something reasonable, we still have time if we want to go back out and bid it.
It's the same service for less, that's all.
And I'll tell you, we're definitely gonna change a couple things in the contract, including the fuel charge,
Surcharge.
because, you know, if you remember, those of you who were on the council, we had that dispute, whether we were gonna pay what they wanted, or, you know, we're gonna pay what I recommended.
Well, and how's it gonna
Didn't
be
we meet in the
affected?
middle on that, with the surcharge fee?
No, you don't want Mark,
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah,
Which was up to
about 5% lower than.
yeah. I
what they
remember
wanted.
that meeting, yeah.
Going back to that survey, I spent some time with it today. It's pretty crazy how high the trash service ranks on the amount of people satisfied with it as compared to the US, the other people that have done surveys with that company, but also, just living through that transition. Oh, you just don't want that. I mean, that's an aspect that I'd say.
I don't know, when he told me today that, you know, the second half, like, why in the world, if everybody's happy with the trash, we do this.
All the way back to that,
I agree with that.
I think now's a good time, like you said, to negotiate certain aspects of it that you realize now, hey, this could be better for us, before we sign it.
Oh, yeah, no, we'll definitely,
Is it, we looked at how that's gonna affect us when the dump actually changes from wood blade to actual wood.
it doesn't,
It
they
doesn't.
don't really use the weight landfills.
They don't.
We
Okay.
may use them as an interim,
Where do they take it?
they're actually,
Okay.
typically if they fill a truck and they go back, they do it. They do have their own, I didn't forget about that, Waste Management does have a landfill, AC Lakeview, that will use that for offloads during the day if they have to. Because, they can get it over there or something. But typically, if they can just fill the truck during the day, they'll just get it back.
Since everybody, I think, is in agreement that we just wanna renegotiate, can we move
Move
that
on.
to the consent, that we're giving you the direction to go do that, or do
Do
we
we have
have
a
to discuss?
consent agenda on this one?
Just just the minutes.
So it is titled consent? Okay, yeah, we can do that, just.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
I heard that,
Yeah.
but also recommended moving number 7 to consent agenda items. I know, Jimmy, you have some discussion you want on number 8, but I don't know if anyone had any discussion on like
discussion, I know Charlie probably wanted to have some more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know what you think.
I mean, I agree with you on the, I call it government, less government.
Yeah.
Right, so,
Yeah, because
But-
we had a real life situation that happened.
Right, I get
And so, I mean, that's what I want to avoid, I just, yeah.
I kinda hate the way that it had to come up because it really looks like it's targeted.
And I have some thoughts on that specific thing, so
That kinda soured it a little, although I told you I understand the fact that,
I think let's leave it, because I know we've already had a
but,
little bit of talk about it, but I have some thoughts on that, and so maybe that would help everybody feel a little.
I think just leave it where it's at.
Okay, and then discussion on tentative date for city council workshop to review rule standards and expectations. Anybody got any ideas for that one?
So we just throw something out there, but I guess we gotta do that during the meeting. So can we figure it out here?
No, you can discuss ideas here. If you
Like,
have some suggested dates.
how long of a
everybody can
meeting
look it
is-
up, or
How long of a meeting are we looking at probably? Any
that's
ideas?
gonna be based on, all.
Yeah.
We're bringing popcorn and a watch.
Okay, so this is not a staff-led training, this is a discussion amongst council. Shall we bring boxing gloves, what do we need?
We should bring the TML rules and guidelines.
I'll bring my copy of Robert's rules.
We would be happy to provide some kind of structure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before the structure works out.
Yes.
I don't have a problem, I think mid-February and on, my February gets taken care of, so early February.
Okay.
um,
Y'all want a weekday or weekend?
I'm always down for Tuesdays because I've committed that to the city.
And what about February 11th?
That's not, is that the week between me?
Yeah, it should be.
We don't do any other meetings on Tuesdays. P and Z, when's ZBA day?
Fourth Thursday of the
Or if it's on Thursday, all right.
yeah.
Tuesday, the 11th. Is everybody okay with that date?
Yeah.
Any objections? Okay. So we're gonna call it Tuesday the 11th and we'll, so can we move that to consent too, since we've already come up with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna move number 5 and number 6 to consent. Okay.
You want us to beat
10
all
what?
the way down?
10 and 11, did I say, oh, I'm looking at workshop and not that, yes, ma'am.
What
Sorry.
time?
Do we wanna do
10
a
and
6 or a
11.
5:30?
6?
So we don't have to do a
6?
6?
What time?
6?
Yeah, it's a special meeting, so none of that, it's a workshop anyway.
Right.
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, February the 11th. Okay, so hang on, missed you over here correctly. So we're moving number 10 and number 11 to consent. I was looking at the numbers from the workshop, sorry. Okay. All right, anything else before we go? Okay, we will call the workshop done at 6:23 and reconvene at 6:30. All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to call our meetings to order at 6:30. We do have a quorum present. So with that, I'd like everybody to stand for Jerry Harrow from Gathering Robinson Lutheran Church for our invocation.
Please join together in prayer. Creator and author of all good things, we thank you for all that you provide. You give us life, health, and all the material blessings. You've also established government and laws to govern so that all people may live in peace and prosperity, and to promote order and justice to enrich the lives of the citizens. We thank you for the citizens of this community and those who are in attendance today, people who work each day to make a living, support their families, and enjoy the freedoms we have so graciously been given in this country, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At the beginning of this new year, we thank you for the mayor, for these council members, and all who give their time to serve this community and govern the people of Robinson. As the people's servants, give them wisdom, discernment, and courage to know and do what is right, what is good and true for the people living here. There are so many challenges facing us during these times. Please give these leaders wisdom in governing amid the conflicting interests and issues. Please give them a clear sense of the welfare and the true needs of the people, and give them confidence in doing what is good and fitting. And in the midst of honest disagreement, help them work together in harmony and unity for the good of all. And we also know that public service can take a toll on personal lives. We ask that you please protect them and their families and give them personal peace and joy in their task. We pray for the agenda set before them today. We ask that you give them clarity on what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around Robinson. And we commend this time to you. And we thank you for hearing our prayer. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. And the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Birch,
Here.
Finn, McLean,
Here.
Mr. George,
Here.
May,
Here.
Rogers,
Here.
Cider.
Here.
Citizens' comments. Ms. Vaughn. You're up.
Good evening, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you. As always, I want to share chamber announcements with you, and they just went away. There we go. Our next monthly board meeting will be actually tomorrow here in the city council room at noon. Anybody that would like to join us for that meeting, you're welcome to attend. It is an open meeting. And then on January 17th, beginning at 4 p.m., there will be a groundbreaking for Bear Arms Brewery. That's going to be in Robinson. So we'd like to invite all of you to attend. I believe you've probably all been invited already, but we'd like the general public to be invited as well. Our next quarterly networking luncheon will be January 22nd. That's on a Wednesday at noon at Cajun Cajun. Our speaker will be Bert Echterling with a business spotlight at Magnolia Soap and Bath. All of a sudden I can't talk. On January 27th, there will be a ribbon cutting for Mighty Wash Car Wash at noon. We'd love for all of you that can to attend that as well. That is on a Monday, and if you're checking your calendars. We will have a semi-annual membership meeting. We have our chamber banquet is our one main meeting of the year, but we have a semi-annual membership meeting with the chamber, and this year it's gonna be in the form of a Super Bowl party, and it will be on Thursday, February 6th at Hampton Inn and Suite South in the marketplace from 6 to 8. You're all invited to attend. There's no cost to attend. We'll provide some food for you, and we'll just have an opportunity for open discussion and a catch-up of what the chamber's been up to, which most of you know because I bring these announcements each month. And we also have a couple of businesses that have shown an interest in having business after hours. So I would encourage you to watch our Facebook page and our calendar on our website to see if those do come through and when they're gonna be scheduled. We would love to invite all of you to attend any and all events that the chamber has, and thank you for your participation with the chamber and allowing us to be a part of the community.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Linda.
Lots of stuff. Okay. So, next, number 6 is a consent agenda. So we've added 2 things, and before somebody takes this on, it's gonna be number 6 to approve the minutes. Number 10, which needs to be said, discussion and direction given to authorize staff to negotiate our new solid waste service contract. And number 11, that the workshop, a council workshop has been set for February 11th at 6 PM. So do I have a motion for consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
And second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on. All right, number 7. Consider impossible action on ordinance 2025-001 of the city of Robinson, Texas, amending chapter 8 environmental, article 3 nuisances, division 1, generally, to replace section 8-58 with a section entitled lighting nuisance. Amend section 8-59, city may make improvements, charge cost to owner, and the renumbering of sections and providing for an effective date and providing a savings clause. Okay. Discussion. Is there any? More than what we had. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in there, and really it's just so I could, so I would be in favor of the nuisance, lighting nuisance ordinance as it's written, and my thoughts around it are because some of the concerns we discussed were how it's gonna be used because of how it came to us, how this issue was brought towards council. One thing I don't want to, and I hate being in the middle of, are neighbor disputes. And sometimes they like to bring council members into those disputes to, we're going to get you because my buddy's a council member. I have been asked that, to side like that on several occasions, many occasions. And I don't like that. And so that was one of my concerns. I did speak with Craig about how this would be enforced. And this would be enforced as complaint-based, meaning neighbors would then turn in their neighbor on this to the city. Most of our code enforcement action and historically has been complaint-based. I'm pretty confident that our staff, and Greg is not going to direct his staff to go after the particular resident who was brought up, it was brought up to us that his lighting was flowing into a neighbor's yard. I feel pretty confident that staff is not going to go out and do tit-for-tat stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that the neighbors won't, that this won't come back up again. But I think what this does is give an effective tool for staff to address a real issue. And if there is an issue at any particular residence that one complaint is made and it doesn't meet the standard, then there is no issue. It's a non-issue. But I like to give the staff tools to be able to mitigate these things when they are real, but also to let our citizens know sometimes that is not, it doesn't meet the criteria that's set forth, and it gives staff the ability to do that. And I do feel pretty confident that staff is not going to go out after certain neighbors, and not just the one that brought the complaint to us. This is not its first time being addressed. I, for one, worked at a business in town that built a parking lot that had to deal with the commercial lighting. And there was a wonderful family next door that was their forever home. And I sure as heck wouldn't want to be living in that residence with a commercial business's light coming onto my house. And then that business built another parking lot on the other side of that home. So I do believe that this nuisance ordinance would protect people more than it will hurt people. I mean, and I feel confident that Craig and his staff are not going to allow it to be a tit for tat. I gotcha, here I go, for any one of our council members' constituents. I don't think that we have to worry about going after the gentleman that was being reported to us in that sense. And I think that it's a fair ordinance. I don't see it meeting or exceeding any other city around us. It matches our current commercial ordinance, so I feel confident in that.
Yeah, well said.
Comments?
That was my main concern in our workshop, is that we don't over-regulate. You know what I mean? Because we get problems then from doing that, and it's unnecessary and it's burdensome on citizens. That's my only concern, and I think that it's what Craig has brought up as far as candlelight measurement, you know, how to measure how much light is actually intruding, so to speak, on someone else's property. Gotta be some kind of a, you know, a way to evaluate that. I think that you've said that, haven't you, Craig, pretty much made that? It's a pretty standard thing.
Yeah, it's
Way
a
to-
pretty standard measurement for outfall lighting.
So just as long as we're not over-regulating, that's really my only concern. And we have had situations, as I mentioned in the workshop, where somebody was 1,000 feet away from a proposed new business and they were already complaining. It's like, because they didn't want to see that business happen. So you have that, and we want to avoid that, you know, so anyway, that's just my thoughts on it.
Well, like I said, I appreciate Jimmy, what he said. Of course, what I said was I don't want it to be, the way it came about, I didn't like how, you know, this came about because of somebody coming in here and kind of being a targeted type deal. There is room for an ordinance like this, but just, I had a little concern about how.
And your
got here.
concerns are valid, because I mean, you're gonna see it, we're all gonna see it as we spend time on council, where neighbors are going to have issues with each other, and they're going to wanna use council and the staff and ordinances and laws to make us get back at their neighbor. And I don't agree with that. I'll be pretty blunt with people who try to use me to do that. I'm not going to participate in it, you know, but this does give them a tool to do it. I do expect if this passes that complaint is coming, but this puts it as fair and as level as it can be. It's unfortunate how the complaint was brought to us and the comments made surrounding it. I certainly didn't ask for it, but it is on our plate now.
Yeah,
so-
brought it to light. Ha, no
It
pun
was-
intended.
You know, it is an issue, and I even went as far as to talk to the neighbors to see what else. And so there's more to the story, and again, I caution every one of us that don't get sucked into the neighbor disputes, because they'll try to use you for it. We have a role in setting policy and budget. Staff takes care of enforcement and all the details. I think this is just an effective tool.
Anything else?
We can still do this on a per-case basis, right? If it comes to that, Craig, this is not gonna eliminate us being able to make decisions on a per-case basis, correct? This is not gonna be a flat thing that just completely takes government out of it, us, elected by the people.
It
out of
doesn't
it.
come to the city council.
Yeah, once this is
Fine.
enacted, a complaint
Once it's
will
an
not.
ordinance, it's an
will not
ordinance.
take-
It should never come up before
I
us.
guess what I'm saying is that if something is extraordinary, then, no.
Trying to grasp it. Extraordinary. What?
There's always exceptions, you know, we get them. And so
Yeah.
I guess maybe I'm
I
overthinking
mean,
it.
So you may be thinking somebody would come in here and bring their in here because they didn't agree with
I'm thinking that if,
down that way, or?
thinking maybe if there's a disagreement between neighbors, such as what Jimmy said, is that there could be a resolution to it through us if necessary.
Ooh,
I wouldn't recommend
No,
council putting themselves in that situation.
we don't get that involved in that at all.
I mean, that's the
That's
whole
code
reason we
enforcement
wrote this
issues.
ordinance this way, is we tried to be scientific and objective with a clear standard that's not decided by a staff member using his judgment. It's used by a meter that will be a calibrated meter, and it will have a calibration. You know, they come calibrated, there's a way to check the calibration, make sure it's still reading accurately and things like that. To do that, so, and I would just back it up a little bit. I know a lot of the focus is the issue between the neighbors. I just remind you that we're on the council time. The gentleman who came to the meeting did not come in here. His primary focus was not complaining about his neighbor. His primary focus was, his complaint was, he had reported to the city he had this, and the city staff was not doing anything
yeah,
about it.
was unable to.
That was
Had
his
no tool.
initial complaint. And that's usually what happens when these things come up, is there's an issue here and the city won't deal with it. Everybody wants the city to stay out of things until they have an issue,
100%.
and you know, and some of it's just the times. You know, there was a time when you could walk over and knock on your neighbor's door and say, "Man, your lights are really bright. Can you tone them down a little bit?" And the neighbor would say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll take care of that." That doesn't seem to be in anyone's thought process anymore. No one, their first choice is not, I'm gonna go talk to my neighbor. Their first choice is, I'm gonna call the city and I want the city to fix my problem. So, if people are gonna come to us with these issues and we're gonna try to address them, then we need to have something that's reasonable and fair and doesn't take anybody's side, and that's what this does. It's, we talked about staff and I talked with Mayor. I think, personally, I'm proud of the solution David came up with, and we worked together and with the attorney, because this is
Agreed.
one of those situations where we're not putting anyone in a situation to, I said in the pre-meeting, you see these ordinances sometimes, especially nuisance, it says if it was offensive to a reasonable person. Well, I've been doing this for 40 years, I'm still looking for that reasonable person.
And that's why I brought that up.
Yeah,
That's
so this doesn't do
exactly
any
why
of
I
that.
brought
This is strictly a measurement. And the fact is, there's not too many circumstances where someone should be lighting up their homes so bright that it's negatively impacting the people around them.
Right, I mean, how many calls do you, I mean, this isn't something.
Typically, when this happens, it's because there's a neighbor dispute and one neighbor is pointing a light at the other neighbor. Or,
And it's usually a standard floodlight, right? It's not anything that's going to go 200-300
sometimes they'll
feet
put
or-
spotlights and shine it in the back of
Really?
their house and.
I've had this conversation with two different neighbors. One because my neighbor was shining light, and then I was shining light into my, and it was just as simple as adjusting, but you're right.
Point it down a little
Yeah.
bit.
Just point it at the ground, get it away from their house, and, my thought was I was trying to get the alleyway between the two houses, the distance between the two, just to give us, some security there. It's as simple as just turning it back. So I've been on both sides of this, but
Yeah.
to Craig's point, it's rare to have that conversation these days.
Yeah.
So I'm with y'all. I don't want to be the arbiter of disputes.
No,
On this board.
and it's not.
No,
That's
we don't.
exactly
not our
why
role.
I brought that up.
That's
But
not
I
our
do
role.
want there to be remedy that goes in extraordinary circumstances that, how they come up to where something could,
Well, our normal code enforcement process is, and this pretty much for any violation across the board, when it's first reported to us and we determine there's a violation, we go contact the property owner, we may mail a letter, put a door hanger and say, you have a potential code violation, contact us, or we may send them a letter saying whatever, and explain to them, what they need to do to rectify the situation. So I don't see, I'm not gonna say there's never a circumstance, because if somebody's just blatantly doing something, the police department is getting multiple calls back and forth, they might take action immediately, but through a code enforcement standpoint, we're usually gonna give people an opportunity to fix. We typically give them a defined time period to fix it. And again, for most of this, it's just gonna be a case of adjusting the way a light's pointed.
and y'all do a really good job of that too. So thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thank you, Craig.
Really
Yeah,
good.
it's, I've said this time and time again, the most effective compliance is voluntary compliance. So we have to start writing citations to get people to comply. Those are the people we deal with over and over and over and over and over again. So we just want to let people know there's an issue, you need to take care of it.
Thank you.
Motion?
Make a motion to approve. Go ahead, Brittany.
That was spoken.
Wait a
Go
minute.
ahead, Brittany.
Jeremy said, hang on.
So there is a recommended motion on page 15?
Yes, I see it.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve and enact ordinance 2025-001, amending chapter 8, environmental article 3, nuisance division 1, generally to replace section 8-58 with section entitled lighting nuisance, amend section 8-59, city may make improvements, charge costs to the owner, and renumbering sections and providing the effective, and providing a savings clause.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 8, consider and possible action on ordinance 2025-002, amending appendix C of the master fee schedule by repealing the charge for burn safety inspection.
So,
Who wants to start?
I can start this. So this is on the agenda because it was requested by Councilmember Stivner at the last meeting for us to bring it back for reconsideration on the fee. So that's what you have there. I did include the section from our ordinance that is involved, how we cover it. We basically just reference the Texas Administrative Code section that covers the distance and all that. And then we kind of outline that exception for prescribed burn and things under the state law. And then down below in section 2, any person who causes, suffers, allows, or permits an outdoor burning must, prior to igniting the burn, contact the city inspection department and give written notice of the intent to burn on the prescribed form. Such notice should be given a minimum of 72 hours prior to the planned burn. If the information provided on the written notice of intent appears to comply with state law, an on-site inspection by authorized city personnel will be conducted. So that's what we talked about in the work session. So we'd gotten away from that period of time because we had only had one code enforcement officer and he was overwhelmed. But now that we're back, we're to 2 and fully staffed. I've already discussed this with them. If we're going to continue under the existing ordinance as worded, they will have to go back to doing the on-site inspections. Me personally, we're trying to get a little bit of control of this just to make sure somebody doesn't start a fire and burn down a big part of the city. And so if we're not out there visually looking at it, we don't know what's potentially buried in that pile. Now, can they throw something in there after the fact? Yeah, they can, but at least we can get eyes on proximity of things. You know, we start looking at photos, you get compression. It's kind of hard to measure distance. If you don't have recent aerial photos, you know, you may say, well, it looks like it's far enough away. So me personally, if we're gonna go out there and give permission to burn, I think we need to physically look at it. So I think that needs to continue. But burn can't be done without that. And then but it still puts the responsibility on the person igniting the burn and all that. So what this does is this keeps everything in effect the way it is, but it does repeal the $50 charge.
So, in the time that, I'll have plenty of questions, I'll let y'all have your turn and then I'll take another one at that. In the time that we did online only and there was no one going out here and checking, we were just doing the pictures, was there any issues with the burns?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. How long do you think that was going on?
How long were y'all doing the?
A couple months, about 6 months, I would say.
We were probably under a burn ban too.
A lot of the times we were under burn bans, yes.
Well, I burned in September, I burned in November. I've never had anybody come to look at the pile. It was all done online and it was all done same day. So, I mean, this one's gonna be only a lot of concern. The other concern is how long does it take for once someone let's face it, here lately, when we get a burn ban and they come off of the burn ban, you could have 24 hours, 48 hours before somebody changes their mind and goes back. Well, it could take longer than that to get someone from the city to go out and look at your burn pile. And as you already brought up, which I brought up with you, is that you can look at it all you want. When you leave, you have no idea what they're doing with it. The other thing I'm gonna say is if we start charging a fee for this, you're gonna start seeing, it's an opinion, but you're gonna start seeing more people burning without permission, and we're not gonna know what's going on. So that's some of my opinion. Anybody else got discussion for that one?
I do, but I want to pull something up. Well, I won't be able to. I don't have the right login. I was just going to pull up the fire department's incident report that they published. Talk about. I haven't been on the fire department in a while, so I do know that burn piles are a big portion of those calls, and a lot of times anytime that they're unpermitted, it's the ones that are full of stuff that shouldn't be burned. It's people just, we didn't call because we did not want you to say no to us. That's why we did this. But, so I start with no taxation without representation. So at the start of this, I mean, I don't think we should be collecting a fee if we are not incurring any expense. But I also believe if we are incurring expenses, my tax dollars, if I'm not burning anything, my tax dollars should not be paying for someone else's expense because they want to burn things. I think that holds true with development fees and all kinds of incidences that are for specific users. Anytime a specific user, I don't want to subsidize pool inspection fees. I don't have a pool. Why should I? And so I think that a lot of people, citizens would agree with that. So I'm torn. Are we gonna do these inspections going forward? What is the cost to do the inspection and to handle the permit reality? Is $50 too much? But if we're not doing these inspections, yeah, I don't believe that there needs to be a fee. So I guess, I know Craig's already said that ordinance says we're doing these, but I don't wanna, if we get into a bind in a year, all of a sudden we're back to one code enforcement officer and we've gotta make some, cause I'm kinda okay with the automated process, if that's the direction of staff. Now, I think the answer, one of my questions, I'd like somebody from the fire department to give guidance, and that's,
How many calls?
how do you guys feel about no one inspecting these burns?
Yeah.
But I think right now, we're going to be doing an inspection, so if that is, what's that fee or that expense look like, and let's charge reasonable. I know Craig keeps talking about he hadn't met a reasonable person yet. I don't know why I keep getting offended when he says it. But what's the reason, what's the reason on a reasonable fee for inspecting the burn pile, having to stop what you're doing in your day to travel to that site, look at the photos, compare that to reality of, boots on the ground? What's that really cost?
Well, then you gotta think about, to what extent are they going to inspect the burn pile? If they're gonna be inside, they're gonna get out of their car, they're gonna go to the burn pile. Are we gonna have inspection people walking, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 acres down? I mean, I have a neighbor with 150 acres of burn it on the backside. How are they gonna get in? Are they gonna be home to let them in, so on and so forth? Are we as a city okay with now we're gonna take on this additional effort of actually putting on eyes versus, for me, an automation to say, okay, we're gonna do a burn, or I'm gonna burn some brush. City needs to, A, know about it. Number 2, agree and approve that we are not in a burn ban, right? Obviously, anything within a burn ban, that's upon that residence. I mean, they're one breaking that rule, and then if it gets out of control, that they're gonna be hit with it, right? So, to me, I think it's a little extreme to have a fee on top of that. And also, I get made fun of, but being on city council, I have to adhere to if I'm not adhering to policies and procedures, how can I expect anybody else to? But I get made fun of other neighbors, and when I do burn, they're like, did you get a permit? Because they don't get permits, right? So we start charging $50 or any nominal fee. I think it's on it just encourage those that are trying to be honest to go.
Kind of like the garage permit situation.
Yes.
I got that.
Yeah, so.
But to an extent, garage permits don't occur any expenses, other than, well, it used to, the sign that we would issue, that cost more than what we were paying, or we were receiving in a fee, but this one's a safety issue, it's not a.
But I think you're right. If the fire department was coming to us, if our volunteer fire department was coming to us saying, hey, this has gotten out of hand.
Even as a proposed $50 fee, this pales in comparison to what other cities do.
What if we consider a special circumstance where David goes out, whoever, and inspects his site, and the site proves to be hazardous or some problems, then we can look at fees or charging, or, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
We can then take it to a different level in that regard. Do we need to give you permission to be able to do that, Craig, to save the city money in certain circumstances? Are there circumstances that you all see? We don't see them. I don't know every day what happens or who's asking for a permit or why. But is that a possibility? Is it a possibility for us to be able to charge in certain circumstances, whereas the normal burn, no, to say Greg is just burning on his property and he's within this compliance and y'all are okay with it, let it go. He didn't have to pay a $50 fee. But if I want to burn something that's, I don't know, is that a possibility? Is that even a thing? Is that something we should consider in your opinion? You guys deal with it every day, we don't, and we're talking about fees, so let's just get it all out on the
And
table.
we
Is there a reason
We have to
for
stick
it?
with the inspection, like,
No, there's no, so one of the things, the reason it got changed to inspection fee is it used to be called a permit. Technically, under state law, we can't issue a permit. This is governed by the state fire marshal under the state Texas Administrative Code. What we can do is we can require like an inspection or something, just to make sure that they're in compliance with the state law.
so it doesn't actually.
We can have
happen.
an ordinance that just says, if you're gonna burn, you gotta burn in accordance with state law, and if you burn down
Yeah, that's
half
on
of
you.
Robin once and,
Right.
you know, then you get to deal with the
Or
consequences.
what if we don't
but-
do the on-site inspection and just automate it like we had been, and that way you've notified the city, fire department knows this
I
location.
mean, if we just wanna have it that you have to notify us
For
prior
sure.
to burning, then I would say you don't do it 72 hours, you notify us at the time you're gonna burn.
Mm-hmm.
Because we do the 72 hours notice, but I don't think we get notified necessarily at the time they actually,
Well, and then if we do it
Start the
automated,
burning.
that would eliminate the fee, which would deter people from getting a permit anyways.
So is there,
maybe it's-
does the automated system that we were working from satisfy the state of Texas? I mean, are there other cities that don't have on-site inspections? Is everybody doing it different? I'm just saying that the way that we had it, the only way that I was doing it the 2 times that I did it, you went online, you took the 3 pictures, you followed the directions, you had them on there. They can pull them up, they can see the same thing on the automated as they can if they go in person. There's no, if you're gonna hide something in that burn pile, they're not gonna see it if they're there or they're looking at a picture, okay? I mean,
It's gonna be at the bottom.
it's gonna be at the bottom of the pile and you're not gonna see it. And so we're looking for the 1 or 2.
there's no
folks that are-
requirement to have an inspection. I mean, we can
But
change.
I'm just saying that it's a much faster process, because if I go out, if they take the burn ban off, and you take pictures that morning, you got a permit by the afternoon. Because LeBron's looking at them and he's seeing what's on there, and then he calls the police department, the next morning you call the police department, you know, I'm burning, okay, so they know where you're burning and you go. But I don't know why we would try to complicate the online process that works pretty well.
I'm not opposed to it. I mean,
If we do it
I mean,
automated,
because
then we
truth be
waive the fee,
told,
right?
inspection or no inspection, the city doesn't have any liability for a
Right.
burn.
No.
That's on the person who ignited it, on that property owner. If they burn down their pasture, their house, and their neighbor's house, the city is not. Now, sometimes we have to govern for the mistakes. A lot of our ordinances and laws come up because somebody screwed this up for everybody. That's how this works. So, do we risk that and say, okay, let's do the automated process. Hey, they documented it, everything looked good. Thumbs up. No cost, no fee. Let's do it automated. I'm okay with that because, I mean, 2 guys now, that's great. And as the city grows, you know, we have more complaints coming in. We want to be more proactive with code enforcement. It is one of the top 3 to top 5 requests in our citizen survey is to do more code enforcement.
Yeah.
So that might take something simple off their plate. I'm not opposed to that.
So when somebody applies for the, you know, burn ban or whatever, when somebody applies to burn, do we notify the fire department? Like, is there communication between that so
PD
everybody
has,
knows?
the list of burn permits, so a fire department is going to, typically the PD or dispatch won't dispatch fire department if they already know.
Oh, okay.
But en route, PD and fire can request, hey, can you check if there's a burn permit at this site?
Yeah, it seems like it would be
But I
nice
will
for
tell you,
all entities to know.
These calls only come out at 2 in the morning when a firefighter's trying to sleep and gotta work at 8 in the morning. And it doesn't get known until you get to the site that, wait, this one is a permitted burn or.
But to the rules, once you get your burn permit, you're supposed to call PD and let them know
I'm
you are
about to.
burning that morning before you ever set fire.
Oh, okay.
Some of these piles can get so big, they'll burn for days.
Yeah, they smolder.
They
yeah.
they will burn for days. They'll be out there smoldering and going for a while. So that's, I've responded to the same burn pile 4 days in a row. No joke.
Yeah.
And we keep putting it out. And why does this thing keep lighting off? Because that much material there. It just happens.
Well, Waco has a provision in their ordinance. They require, of course, they limit it to just certain areas of the city, but they require you have to have a $1 million insurance policy for your
Yeah, that's
burn.
crazy.
They also require that if they have, fire department has to respond, they charge you a per piece of equipment charge. So if you don't do it safely and it gets out of control and the fire department gets out there, then it's not really, I think it's like $250 per piece of equipment that has to respond.
But upon
But they do
insurance
that.
policy too.
I mean, you know, the only reason we're having to do the inspections is because that's what the ordinance currently says.
Yeah.
we can change this, we can change it to, you just have to notify the city, submit the stuff you said, we give you there's no burn ban, you're good to go. And then if we want the consequence to be, if you don't handle it properly, or you don't light it properly, you don't control it properly, the fire department has to respond, there's a fee you have to pay.
Yes,
That
I
can
like
go
that.
to help
I would
reimburse the
love
fire
that.
department.
Yeah, that sounds
part of it.
perfect.
But I would also, I mean, I'm good with automated, no fee. I'm good with, you all say we wanna inspect it, and we decide what the fee is. I do wanna hear the fire department's take on this. I wanna hear from Sullivan on
Where's Stephen when you
what
need
he
him?
thinks is appropriate in this situation. And use that to help guide the decision. If we don't,
I agree.
don't
We
need it.
don't
We don't
deal
need it.
with this every day. We don't know. I mean, to sit here and say, I know how this should go, I don't. Neither do you. But you deal with it every day, and so do you, David, and so does the fire department. So I'm in agreement with it. Whatever you guys decide and you bring to us, we're probably gonna say, yeah, that's a good thing because you deal with it every day. But for us to try to do these scenarios all night long and we could come up with 500 different things that could happen, we don't know. But you deal with it every day, Craig. We have complete confidence in you as city manager, and David is inspector.
Will you reach out to the
and-
fire department, see what their thoughts
Fire
are?
department.
Is that what, Jimmy, you wanna wait and?
if nobody wanted to make the motion, I was gonna ask to table this and bring it back until we can get the fire department's.
I
opinion
second
on it.
that motion if that's a motion. Cause that can be a motion. I read it today.
Anybody
I'm
else
reading
have
up
any
on this
thoughts
stuff, guys.
before I do that?
Is that
Good
how
to
you'd
table
like
it
me to
until
do
we-
that?
I motion to table this till our next meeting, such time we can have our fire department representative available to join the discussion.
And David and Craig input. I'll second that motion. Is that your motion? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's where you do the second and then amend it, including the staff.
God,
And then we-
we're gonna go
we
over that
talked
here in
about
the
this.
workshop.
We talked about it.
Y'all are making her job difficult down there in the corner.
We're doing our best, guys. I mean, you know.
See, Misty, I bet you missed me down on that side. I wasn't that rowdy.
All right, number 9. Consider and possible action on resolution 2025-001-R expressing support for the application of Avante Legacy Meadowbrook LP to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for the 2025 competitive 9% housing tax credits to develop affordable senior rental housing and other matters in connection therewith. And Mr. Flores is here. You can approach, and you can, if you got something you want to say first, and then we can,
Thank you, Mayor.
Throw questions.
Happy New Year to everyone. It's good to be back. You know, I'm really here just to answer any questions. I made this my presentation last last year, I guess. But we're still, proposing something very similar to what was approved, was adopted by this council in 2019. That unfortunately was not funded. Senior community, 93 units on a 7-acre site, 13 units per acre. $21 million, we pay taxes, asking for any abatements or waivers or anything of that nature. This site is already properly zoned, so it's a conforming use. The total investment is $21 million. It's about $227,000 a unit, just to give you a sense of the quality. If you've gone to our website, you've seen our other properties. If you go to Waco, you can see one on.
6501 Sanger.
Yeah, the 6501 Sanger. And we also have a deal in Killeen that's
Yeah,
under construction.
breaking ground.
And another one that was approved in 2024, that should be in construction sometime this year. That'll be our 60th transaction. We've been in business since 1999. We're at about $900 million of investment. Family-owned company. I'm proud to work with my son and my daughters. They actually own the company now. I work for them.
Yeah. Hopefully they pay you well.
No, they don't.
You should file a complaint.
Circle of life.
Absolutely. No, I'm very proud of them.
6501 Sanger.
I'm proud that they have.
Not kidding.
questions for
I looked
Mr.
at it today.
Flores?
I have no questions, or a statement in support of this. I missed the first meeting, so I don't know
Yeah, I
where
missed
the
this one too.
temperature of the council was previously, but I would voice my support for, this project. I've done it so in the past. I know that previous councils have not been as open to, is a good word, open to it. It's one of the things I hear from citizens, that it's in our survey that these type of developments are not something that they're as open to, but though I do view my role as a voice for citizens, I also say sometimes I have to be the voice of reason, and sometimes I need to advocate on their behalf even if they're not. I think this is the thing we need for our community. From our citizen survey, the need for affordable housing was consistently brought up as a thing that we weren't doing well enough. It didn't hit into that top tier things they wanted us to focus on over the next couple of years, but it was higher on the list. But at the same time, in that same survey, there's enough comments that said we don't want these type of developments. But I would say we need more of them. This one's focusing on senior, correct?
That's correct.
We've had others approach that were workforce driven, that were about bringing folks and giving affordable houses to those who, young families in the workforce, and to bring a larger workforce to Robinson. So I'm supporting it. I think everybody else should. I know this is a controversial topic at times in terms of bringing developments like this, but I think we're going to need it. We want economic growth, and who's going to work in those businesses as we bring them in? You know, I think it's a great project, and we should support it.
We'll just go ahead and on this side, this end, speak. And I just stopped by the 6501 Sanger project today. But that does, your concept adds new meaning to projects. I mean, because this is a project. This is something that provides very affordable housing to people that need it. And seniors, yeah, we have a lot of seniors. I'm one in this community. So we have a need, I think, in our community for this. I think it's upscale. It brings value, added value to our community. I think it's gonna, would be a good thing for our community overall. That's my opinion.
Well, I thank both of you. You know, the 2019 application did a market study. Ours is still a work in progress. That market study determined there was a need for 3,240 units of senior housing in this community. 2019, we suspect that number's around 3,500 people. So there's definitely a need for that. And we did discuss at the last meeting the potential of doing something sequentially where we build the senior community and then next to it build a family community of workforce housing. We call it intergenerational because then you can live here, your mom can live there.
Yeah.
And you're not living with your mom, your mom's not living with you.
Right, but you still send your
can
kids
get
to your
there.
grandma's
And
house. Yeah.
It's worked very well in McAllen, it's worked very well for us in Corpus. There's too many unforeseen factors in the financing that I can't speculate whether that'll be feasible or not, but we do believe that this application, this senior community we're proposing will be competitive.
What else?
I only had 2 comments on it. I mean, more blanket questions. So this would increase our demand for medical services, do we think, because and are we equipped to handle that?
I mean, it's not really assisted living or anything like that, it's just senior housing,
Okay.
I mean,
so.
Yep, yeah.
I think it's
These are
reasonable
just-
as your population grows, the services that are needed, medical included, to
Right.
grow. I don't think that a senior facility necessarily, those people are living somewhere right now and
Yeah.
already getting those services somewhere right now.
Yeah.
This does bring them into an area together, but
Keeps them in our community
yeah,
too. I
Right,
mean,
as
they
long
don't have
as-
to seek this kind of housing somewhere else.
just
Keeps them in Robinson,
Mhm.
people that want to be in Robinson.
Mr. Rogers is correct, the market analysis that was done was really for this community. It didn't project Waco or Hewitt or anything else, it's for Robinson. Those 3,500 families are in Robinson and want to stay in Robinson, they just want to move from their current
If-
facility to a senior home.
to further your point from our senior survey, if you look at the demographics on it, based on age, our aging population is the smallest portion of it. So where are our grandparents going? Where are they living now? Because they don't have this available here.
Yeah.
They're going into Hewitt, they're going into Waco, they're going to other communities where it's already existing, and we don't have it. So
Or they're moving in with you.
Or-
Moving in
yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Karen and I have both gone through this the last 10 years with our parents, you know, us pushing our 70s, and they've, to have that here would be great for me, I think. I mean, I would appreciate it as a Robinson citizen. If I need to put my parent or help my parent find something that's more affordable than their own place, so I don't know, I just see all the benefits, I don't see any negatives in it personally.
Yeah, and mine wasn't a negative, mine was more of a question, like, are we, you know?
No, I get that,
Yeah, you know, I know.
Well,
Just
and
making
back
it
to your
clear.
question,
Not
any,
ditching
any
it.
growth increases
Right,
demand
right.
services, but I don't know that this would be, because I think a lot of, we didn't get as much feedback this time, but the first time we did this, we did have people in the community who came in that said, you know, they supported it because their parents are, you know,
Yeah.
ready to retire, they want to downsize, but they don't want to leave Robinson, and they really
Mhm.
can't afford to downsize and stay in Robinson.
Right.
Because there's no options
Yeah.
for them.
And
to do
frankly,
that.
people are concerned about low quality, you know,
Right,
this
yeah.
is not that.
No, yeah, I got on your website and saw your other locations, it was beautiful, yeah, like, I would live there.
How many times have we heard the story of our retired folks getting priced out of their own homes
Yeah.
with the property taxes, and they just can't afford to continue living in their forever home?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a sad reality for a lot of people. And so without a quality inventory of homes they can afford, where are they going?
Yeah.
So this to me is, housing in the future is gonna be, we all know how the housing market has just blown up around here across the country, but this is gonna be very important. I know it kind of breaks a stigma of people not wanting multi-family or these apartment complexes, these developments, but this one isn't, for lack of a better term, the slumlord apartment complex coming
Yeah.
in. You don't invest that amount of money
Mm-hmm,
into a facility like this and just let it go.
right,
And this one having the tax credits makes this a profitable and viable business model for sustainability.
yeah.
Because without the tax credits, they gotta foot the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're gonna have landlords that are like, well, I gotta cut corners, I can't repair the microwave because I gotta pay a tax bill.
Yeah,
And that brings us to
I gotta pay a
affordability,
mortgage.
and that's one of the questions that I had last time for you, is how can we assure that the rents are gonna remain affordable long-term, and not 5 years from now, look, oh, well, it's gonna cost this much now to be in this, but you had an answer for that.
Yes, sir, you know, that we are long-term owners, because again, we're trying to create a legacy for our family. And we have been in business 25 years, thank God for that. But whether I own it, whether the mayor owns it, no matter who owns it, it is gonna be restricted as affordable by a land use restriction agreement that's gonna be on title. So it cannot stop being affordable, and you're right, it is very affordable. We target families who are on social security, so the total income monthly is $3,500 a month, which is about social for two people. But our rents, depending on the income, have three different rents, either $394,
wow,
$699, or at worst, $852.
wow.
We think that the typical one-bedroom rent in this market is probably about $1,200.
Yes.
You gotta go to Waco.
I know
Agreed.
for a
Yep,
fact it
that's,
is.
yep, that's about
Jimmy
right.
knows. Yeah.
So, you know, we are either $800 to $400 cheaper than the market. What that does is not only does it provide affordability, it provides us a lot of sway with our residents. Because I've got families lined up waiting.
For sure.
And if one resident is being a problem, then they're removed.
Yeah.
Because I've got people waiting in line.
So this brings us to the final kind of question, is that, I've always heard the saying, and if something seems to be too good to be true, it probably is. But I like your explanations, and your answer for what we've given so far, but I would think that it's worth, at this point, the gamble is worth the risk
Well, thank you.
based on all that you provided and so on.
Well, you know, last time I was here, you asked about, how do we ensure the long-term quality of the community? You know, again, we're committed to it, the IRS is looking over our shoulder, the state agency is looking over our shoulder.
Accountability.
But there was one anecdotal, comment that I didn't make then, that I'll make now. On the list that we provided, Mr. Lemin, of references, is a previous city councilman in Corpus Christi, who's now on the college board, Mr. Rudy Garza. When we were courting Mr. Garza to do a deal in his district in 2015, he asked about one of our properties, we're talking about our property, brand new, finished, he thought it was exceptional. But he says, you know, everything looks good on day one. He says, what happens in 5 years? I said, well, down the street, the first deal I ever did was in Mercedes, Texas. That's my mom and dad's hometown. I My second year was Corpus Christi, my hometown. There's a reason for that. I said, Rita, we have a deal that's 20 years old down the road that we did in 1995. Let's go there unannounced. We went there and walked that property. Mr. Garza was so impressed with that property, he moved his mother-in-law in there.
Oh, wow.
Now, if you do something with your mother-in-law, you better be right. But that is probably the greatest compliment I've ever received, is someone felt so taken by our property. It was 20 years old. He moved his mother-in-law in there. She deceased now, but she lived there for a number of years very happily.
Very cool.
Anything else? Motion?
It means I gotta scroll up. Anybody else is there, go ahead.
I'm not.
I hand it to you.
Yeah, I got it. I'm not, right?
You're
I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah, you got it. All right,
Motion
so
to
good.
approve resolution 2025-001-R expressing support the application of Auntie Legacy Meadowbrook LP to the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs for the 2025 competitive 9% housing tax credits to develop affordable senior rental housing and other matters in connection therewith.
I'll second that motion.
You got it.
Master George can run it in. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right.
Mayor, members, thank you, and God bless you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right, number 12 is updates and requests for items to be placed on future agenda, excuse me, sorry. Does anyone have,
Like the hat, buddy.
does anybody have anything they would like to put on a future agenda or request? Yes,
I
sir?
had two,
Jim,
and my mind has slipped on one of them.
did you talk to
Flip-flop.
me about it?
The flip-flop.
I think so, but it's not, I started to write it down as I thought about it, and I got presentation regarding.
Flip-flop.
So, the thing I do remember is, so it came up many times tonight, I printed it, it's 130 pages, I've read it several times, I brought it up today. It's not the only thing I use to help guide thoughts and decisions, but, you know, as our role as council members to be a voice for citizens, this is probably our best I don't know how to describe it.
Unsolicited.
Well, it's solicited, but this is not constituent telling us. This is a good cross-section of our community, of the things they want us to focus on. We're gonna be coming into budget season in a few months, and we're gonna have to decide what and how we're going to fund things and what's important. And to help us guide that, I think this is one of the tools.
What is
Best
it
way
that you
to-
have over there?
It's the 2023 Community Survey,
Oh,
Citizen
yes. Mhm,
Survey. It was published in February, but, I mean, I don't like doing surveys, and man, this one wasn't a little one.
Yeah,
People
data.
took a lot of good time, there's a lot of good information in there. It is not readable. I mean, dude, this thing is a lot, and just reading it, you're gonna be confused. When they finished this, they brought a presentation and explained it to us. I would like to have a presentation
It's
again.
on the website.
Well, no, I printed
But
it.
you wanna have the presentation.
Yeah,
again.
because they have insight to how
So
the
we can
data
ask
was
questions.
collected, but also how to read the data, how to make the data
Maybe
make
something we had
sense
in the
and
workshop.
applicable, in actual decisions and thoughts, because you can read it, and I've made notes, I've highlighted, I think these are points it's trying to make, this is what I extrapolate from it, but you could read it and not get the same point. Each one of us could have a different interpretation. So a presentation, it could be a 30-minute just overview of the things that the citizens are telling us.
Destiny's the experts. You can do that.
Was
She's
it you
already
that
on
did
it.
the presentation, or did I forgot the name?
No,
of
the
it.
firm did it, but
Yeah.
I'm sure they're gonna want,
Oh, yeah.
Well, we
because
just
it was
got
not,
so
it was,
Yeah, we
much-
just
it
need
was
the
not an
button.
inexpensive survey, so.
Yeah, yeah. I think it needs, I mean, we
We
spent
do a
money on it.
virtual video with them.
I think we need to revisit it collectively as a council.
Yeah.
But then also a plan for, because I think we talked about doing it every couple of years. So we're not far
Right.
off
Was it
from
3 years?
I think it's every two,
Every 2?
the,
recommendation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
the-
then later, next budget.
Yeah, so we're gonna need to include that into that budget, so double downing and doing it again, but also, let's just revisit it and let it help us guide, because some of us are more active than others in talking to citizens and getting input, and that's good. It was not a criticism.
Well, yeah, but otherwise, I
But-
mean, then the data is useless. I mean, it's good to review and go back and see what they're saying, otherwise why
Well,
do
what I
we
know
do it?
what I know about input from citizens is that sometimes it's emotionally charged because it's their issue, their problem right now, and I'm mad and I want it fixed. And I know, in my experience, when I make decisions out of emotion, it's not the best decision I've ever made in my life.
Yep.
So this came to them in a form where they could express their thoughts, think about it a little bit and express their thoughts and give us some altered, take the emotion out. This is just good feedback, I'm not thinking of one problem or another problem. I'm answering these questions in a good way. So I think that I'd like to revisit it, but also we need to talk about getting it done again every couple of years, so. So
Yeah, no,
that's
that,
a-
this was basically a baseline.
Mhm.
So that's, every couple of years, you come back, 2-3 years.
See how
2
we've
years, so-
improved.
We've got some new members that weren't, a part of that presentation. Again, I
I mean, we can
haven't
reach out to
lifted
them,
it
or we
since
can
February.
take
I
the
haven't looked at it since
presentation and at
February.
least review it, bring it back and review it.
Yeah, something.
I would say we could do it at the workshop, but you may need all the time at the workshop.
Yeah, as I
so.
said that, I thought that too.
So that's all I
We
got. I'll
can-
remember my other one
We
later.
could put, well, we have a couple of council members out next meeting, so probably not next meeting, maybe
In
February.
the next
meeting.
couple. I mean, I want to be ahead of budget discussions and ahead of all that.
We can do that, and one thing we can do is we can kind of go over the basis of how it was conducted and the fact that it is actually
So
it's a scientifically conducted survey with random selection of participants and, start
It's
getting into statistics and
unbiased.
stuff, the
Yeah.
number, and it's what's the level of validity, what's the
Good
margin of
clear
error
data.
and stuff, it's all, if you just stick a survey out and ask people to a question, then anyone can respond, and sometimes people can respond more than once, or household. This was basically one response per household, and there was follow-up to try to make sure we got enough responses. So we can kind of go over all that and what the overview of the findings were, and at least maybe give you more tools to help you better understand when you dig into it and read it.
I know it was very helpful for me just
Yeah.
picking it up again today. So,
Yeah, and that's why, that was one of the reasons we wanted to make sure and get it done, was because it does create a baseline, so we can measure off that in the future.
there's a lot of good information. I think what I read overarching is that, we do have a really good city.
Yeah.
We've got problems. We got things we need to focus on. They have things they are asking for us to do. But, people love this town. They do. They really do. So, it's a lot of hopeful, good vibes, but also, hey, here's the work they want us to do. So, that's it.
Anybody else? Anything? All right, with that, 7:29, we're adjourned.